rose about his head before the proper key was found. The door was flung back, and with a great cry the Tuareg bounded in. The chamber was empty. A ragged-edged hole gaped high overhead, where before had been only a narrow, barred slit. The taller Tuareg lifted the jailer with one mighty hand, placed his curved dagger across the man's neck, and hissed. This was the cell of the one called Patrick, the one sought by Ibn Rashid. The jailer managed a terror-stricken nod. I know nothing, masters. Please, Listen, hissed the other Tuareg. In the sudden silence they heard voices speaking foreign words, then a roaring noise, followed by scraping, rending sounds. A motor car, said the Tuareg. It can't be, shouted a wide-eyed Harish Yohari. And Ferengi are driving, the other said. Impossible! Terror drove Yohari's voice up a full 2 octaves. The taller Tuareg tossed the jailer aside and raced through the cell door. To the ramparts, swiftly. We must signal to close the outer gates. Yes, of course, the diminutive official agreed, but for some reason appeared in no hurry to follow them. You must hurry, of course, and I must alert the guard, and the Sultan, of course. He must know all. But as the Tuareg raced through the outer dungeon, Yohari stopped, turned, and scampered into a small hidden side door. He pushed the secret handle, slipped through, and quietly closed the door behind him. Chapter 2. It was the Desert Way. Lieutenant Colonel Jake Burns had heard that phrase so often from his tribal hosts that it had begun to echo in his mind. For a week and a day he had walked through reaches so empty they had ached with their burden of void. And yet it was in this arid emptiness that his heart had begun to fill with appreciation for the men and women and children who allowed him to travel in their midst. The Al-Masud tribe were a people who defined who they were not by what they owned, not by their houses or jobs or ambitions, but by tradition. Theirs was an extended family of some 80 souls, bound to one another and to the past by centuries of tribal lore. The Desert Way. The phrase wafted through his thoughts as he stood on a rise above the camp, watching the heated discussion between the tribal elders and their leader, Omar. Even at this distance their voices floated clearly through the desert air. Jake had by then begun to recognize Omar's style of leadership. Every major decision was first given over to open debate, but once the judgment was set, any further argument was met with savage fury. That, too, was the Desert Way, and for the moment it seemed more real than all that lay behind him and all that lay before. So much seemed so distant here in this parched land of sand and scrub and stone. The States, which had birthed him and raised him and then sent him off to fight against Hitler's forces, Europe, where he had fought a war and fallen in love and forged the friendship with Pierre Servet that had brought him to this vast desert. Even the mountain fastness of Telouet, not so many days behind them, where he and Pierre had breached a sultan's dungeon and narrowly escaped with the prisoner and their lives. And far away Gibraltar, the source of their telegraphed orders to cross the desert at all possible speed with their recovered comrade and his important secrets. All these places and events haunted his memory and directed his plans, yet somehow they seemed infinitely removed from his present reality. A strange dark cloud hung low on the horizon, hiding the sinking sun and staining the landscape the color of dried blood. Down in the camp, Jake saw a brown arm extend from a sweeping robe to point toward the cloud, then another gesture toward the pristine blue sky that still arched overhead. More voices, more discussion, nods of concern and knowledge and understanding. The Desert Way. Now he saw Jasmine Coltrane detach herself from a cluster of women and walk over to where he stood. Jasmine. He had first heard that name as part of a bitter tale of treachery, the mysterious half-French, half-Moroccan woman who was said to have betrayed his friend Pierre for a Nazi officer. Then he had learned that her true story was one of love and loyalty and sacrifice. It had been Jasmine who had helped them find Pierre's twin brother Patrick in the Sultan's palace, who had arranged with her tribal kinsmen to help them escape. And it was for her sake that Omar had taken them in and offered to guide them from the mountains outside Telouet to the Mediterranean port city of Melilla.
There is a storm,
Jasmine told him.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.